Hello, kindred community, and welcome to a very special episode. Is it not, my sister?
It is a very special episode.
So, Jenn and I had the distinct pleasure of heading to downtown Philadelphia and covering a major exhibit running now through February 14th of 2027 at the Academy of Natural Sciences of Drexel University titled Botany of Nations. And we were fortunate enough to get a tour of the exhibit with Marina McDougall, senior curator with the Academy. So, Jenn, we're just jumping right in here because we've got some stuff to cover. It's
We do. Yeah.
a bit of a longer intro, which is
Hmm.
very exciting. Okay. Botany of Nations launched this year during the United States 250th anniversary, is presented by the Academy of Natural Sciences in collaboration with co-curator, ethnobotanist, and agroecologist Dr. Enrique Salmon, senior curator Marina McDougall, and botany curator emeritus Richard McCourt, and Indigenous contributors. So, the Botany of Nations exhibit centers around the core of discovery expedition led by none other than Meriwether Lewis and William Clark, and of plants, including those hand collected by Lewis and Clark, many of which were given to the American Philosophical Society. And rather than a story of discovery, the expedition centers long-standing indigenous relationships with land, plants, and place. Also included in the exhibit are three short films conveying native stories of three plants made by Anishinaabe Algonquin filmmaker Cass Gardner. So Gardner visited various locations across North America during spring and summer of 2025 to capture how indigenous traditional land practices and cultural systems surrounding food provide contemporary solutions to today's biodiversity and climate changes. Her work highlights the cultural significance of three plants featured in the exhibit and includes conversations with chef and forager Luke Black Elk, ethnobotanist and educator Linda Black Elk, chef Sean Sherman, and cultural historian Craig Howe, PhD, among others. So the Academy is also collaborating with James Beard award-winning, like we mentioned, chef Sean Sherman, owner of the restaurant Awamni in Minneapolis, Minnesota, and a leader on revitalizing and revolutionizing native cuisine in the U.S. And they're collaborating for a special conversation and food program in June of 2026 at the museum.
That's going to be very cool, I think.
Yes, very cool. And
Hmm.
he's amazing. I follow him
Yeah.
on Instagram. He's great. So this is a major exhibition, one that is reframing the Lewis and Clark story through indigenous perspectives, which with a focus on the interrelationships between plants and people. And to do this, co-curators Marina McDougall and Dr. Enrique Salmon have highlighted 7 key plant specimens collected by Lewis and Clark and then positioned them quite literally next to the same plant species collected by the exhibition team within the last 5 years. So we've got Lewis and Clark on the left hand,
Yeah.
and then we've got the exhibit on the right. It is
Which
really,
was so powerful. And so it was just, yeah, it was cool.
yeah,
Keep
yeah.
going. But yeah.
Right. And this is where the Botany of Nation comes alive,
Yeah.
right? So the exhibit offers a range of experiences. You can see and smell plants like tobacco, Indian breadroot, and chokeberry, original specimens cataloged by Lewis and Clark, displayed alongside their modern counterpart. And as you walk through, you're also welcomed with videos and artifacts all about Indigenous story and knowledge. And Jen, we loved smelling the flowers, right?
Yeah. I will say
Or
that
plants, I should say.
the dimension that added, the sensory aspect of being able to smell the plants as you listen to the stories being told about them, and then learning more about how important those were to Indigenous people through time was just really impactful. And I'm always a person who loves multi-sensory things, and smell, as I alluded to at some point in our talk with him, even
Right.
takes me just right to a place,
Yeah.
and a time. And so to be able to do that while you're hearing the stories being told
Yes.
and see it was just,
Really
they just
powerful.
did such a great job.
Yeah, and I think it's like the power of the smell and memory is
Yeah.
so incredible. And
Yeah.
I loved how suddenly you're going from one focus perspective of like colonial science, right, to the wonderful smells of plants and beautiful stories and culture from an indigenous perspective. And
Right.
I loved how when you and I were halfway through the exhibit, and certainly by the end, the original focus of Lewis and Clark had somewhat been replaced with the undeniable focus that was and is Native governance, Native story, Native science, and Native culture.
Yeah.
And three things, and this is a little bit of a teaser, three things that I came away with were plants as portals, the term kincentricity, coined by their very own co-creator, co-curator, Dr. Salmon, and just a deeper awareness of the inseparability we humans have to not only plants, but the broader landscape we live amongst. So, what was one of your takeaways?
So, do you remember being a kid and you would have those overhead projectors in school, and you would have something, and then they would put like um a transparent slide over top of it? I felt
Yes.
like that's what was happening, where there was the Lewis and Clark, and it just fleshed it out in a way that was like, oh, that changes everything when you look at it like that. And I thought that was a really cool thing. Like, that was it reframed it, and it added so much dimension and really changed my perspective, which
Mm,
I really loved. And it was like that template there, and then now
yes.
it's taken on a whole new meaning, and it
Depth
has,
and
yeah,
richness, right?
yeah, and it just,
Yeah.
you see it from I mean, it just clicks something in your
Mm,
brain. Yeah,
mm.
I thought that was really cool.
I love that. I love that. And I 100% agree. And we were just really excited to hear about this exhibition. Just one that I hope and I think is leads the way for many more like it. It's important to see history, such as the Lewis and Clark expedition, re-examined through an indigenous lens. It challenges some false narratives and allows us to learn about this, this journey that Lewis and Clark took, but from a multi-layered indigenous perspective, which is just so critical.
Yeah.
And the extra bonus here is that we are now going to take you into a beautiful conversation with none other than the co-curator, Dr. Enrique Salmon. So that's very exciting. So we have the absolute honor of hearing his perspective of Botany of Nations, why this exhibit is groundbreaking, and what the notion, or rather the deeply rooted cultural experience of kincentricity means. We loved our chat. We're so grateful to have him on. It was nice for
Yes.
him to
Yeah.
speak with us.
It
Yeah.
was very nice for him to speak with us. And yeah, totally. And I thought when he talked about that, the shared cultural experience in regard to plants, and the one that has been fostered and passed down through many generations, it was just so great that just that window in, that these plants have had meaning, shared cultural
Mhm.
meaning for generations. I loved that.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
It just was
And you
very
and I,
powerful.
we
Yeah.
talked about how boxwoods are very meaningful for
Yeah.
us. And he said,
Right.
yeah, that's on an individual level.
Right.
Think of that on
Exactly. That's right.
a national level
Hmm.
for millennia.
Yeah.
So, so powerful.
Yeah.
That I've been steeping in that ever
Yeah.
since he said that.
Yeah. Yeah.
So again, Botany of Nations is running from March 28th, 2026 through February 14th of 2027 in Philadelphia at the Academy of Natural Sciences. Please go to this exhibit. There is so much more to it than we
Yeah.
have even covered here,
Like
right?
that map.
Oh my gosh, the map, right? Just go see. No, we can't
Go
give
see.
we've given the
You just
people
have to
enough.
go.
Given them
Yeah.
enough, right? I assure
You
you.
will not be disappointed.
No, and we've only just given you like just a glimpse of the many layers. Um, but rest assured, it's a full and in-depth body of work, really, that the Academy of Natural Sciences should be massively proud of. We're so excited about this. And so we want to also thank, with all the gratitude in our hearts, the entire team at the Academy of Natural Sciences of Drexel University, and specifically Sinead Murray, Senior Account Executive at Signature 57, our initial point of contact, and the person who we worked closely with to collaborate with this project. And again, to Marina McDougall, Senior Curator and Program Leader. Marina was kind enough to host Jenn and I on our
Yeah,
tour.
that was great.
Absolutely just a kind, intelligent, and lovely, lovely human. And then we were also joined by Caitlin Foddy Colosi. She's the Director of Public Relations and Communications, who also kindly
Yeah,
joined us for the
that was great
tour.
too. Yeah, they were just lovely. It was just
Yeah,
a very nice experience. And
yeah, yeah.
even without them leading the tour, you'll love it.
Oh, for sure. Um,
I can't wait to go back, actually.
Oh, I know, for sure. And last but certainly not least, thanks so much to Dr. Enrique Salmon, ethnobotanist and agroecologist, professor of ethnic studies, and head of the American Indians Studies program at California State University, East Bay. To find out more about Botany of Nations, please visit ansp.org. And you can also find all the links you'll need in the show notes of this episode. So thanks so much for being here. Let us know how you liked the exhibit. And we're now going to join Dr. Enrique Salmon for a beautiful conversation. Thanks. Lots of love. Dr. Salmon, welcome to Kindred, and thanks so much for joining us today.
It's my pleasure.
Would you please introduce yourself and tell us what you do?
Nehe Taraipame Chomari. I'm Enrique Salmon, and my name Taraipame Chomari is translates roughly into he runs with the deer over there. I'm I'm Raramuri. That's the name of my people, and I'm also a professor of American Indian Studies over at California State University, East Bay. I'm also chair of the Ethnic Studies Department. And most of my work has been focused on ethnobotany, ethnoecology, and agroecology of American Indians. And so, I write a few things. I teach some courses, although not so much right now since I'm chair. We teach a little bit less, but that's essentially what I do, and I really enjoy it. To me, it's not a job; it's just
Mm,
who I am.
Mm.
yeah, incredible. Well, they're lucky to have you, as are we. And where is your culture located?
If you go to El Paso, Texas, and then you keep going south about another 250 miles, you come into this canyon. It's called the Barranca del Cobre, and it's a canyon that's 3 times bigger than the Grand Canyon, about 1,000 feet deeper.
Wow,
And that's where my people are.
Wow.
amazing. Is that okay? And I've heard, I think I read at one point that it's one of the major mega diversity centers of the world.
Right.
That
Yeah.
what does that mean exactly?
Well, it means that because of where it's located, in southern in Chihuahua, Mexico, and the Sierra Madres, that region there, it's one of the few places in the world where high elevations meet the tropics and also kind of push up against the arid, American Southwest. And so you get this really unique situation for the production of plant life and animal
Mm.
life as well, and insects, and also a lot of migratory animals constantly moving through this region. And so the third largest number of biodiversity. So that just means, there's tons of unique kinds of plants that are in this
Mm,
region, and many of them are endemic, meaning you're only going to find them there. They won't
right.
grow anywhere else.
Wow.
Incredible. Incredible. Well, thanks for explaining that. That's amazing. What a wonderful place to have grown up, I assume.
Hmm.
And possibly let's put that on our list to go to if we are allowed to come visit.
Oh yeah.
Um, that'd be
The
great.
tropics meeting the Southwest desert is kind of
Yeah,
blowing my mind as I'm
magical.
trying
It
to
is
figure out what
absolutely
that would be
magical.
like.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's
Well,
incredible.
we're at the edge of the canyon that I mentioned, and which is at about 8,000 feet. I've been there in wintertime, like around say December, where there's still some snow on the ground.
Hmm.
Then you go down to the bottom of the canyon, 6,000 feet deep, and people are picking fresh oranges.
Wow.
Wow.
That
Wow.
is
Okay. It's a
crazy.
magical land. We are definitely going to go. Well, Dr. Salmon, thank you so much for joining us today. Jen and I had the pleasure of touring the exhibit, Botany of Nations, at the Academy of Natural Sciences of Drexel University, and came away with a new and deeper understanding of the expedition led in part by Meriwether Lewis and William Clark. More importantly, we gained a deeper appreciation for the plants they collected and the indigenous nations they encountered, all through the perspective and experience of traditional ecological knowledge. So, Dr. Salmon, how did you first learn about the idea for the Botany of Nations exhibit, and what compelled you to ultimately co-curate this event with the Academy of Natural Sciences?
I was looking at my emails yesterday when I was thinking about this question,
Hmm.
and way back in November of 2021 is when I got the first email from Marina McDougall from the Drexel University.
Yes, she
You
was
know,
lovely. We know Marina.
Hmm.
yeah, she's incredible.
Yeah.
And I got that email back then, and she was introducing herself and introducing me to the idea of this exhibit. And apparently, what happened is she had come across the book that I wrote, Iwigara, which is about American Indian ethnobotany, and felt that perhaps I would be a good person to become a part of the exhibit, if not just not as co-curator, at least someone who can contribute. But
Right.
as we talked some more, it turns out that she realized that I have background in museums. I used to work at the Heard Museum in Phoenix, which is an American Indian museum. I was a curator there. And over a couple of conversations on the email, I was invited to be co-curator. And the reason why I was excited about this is because not only do I focus on plant knowledge among native peoples, not just in North America, but around the world as well. But it turns out that way back, number of years ago, back in the 90s, I was and still am part of a group of a bunch of buddies, friends. We call ourselves Les Miserables, and you spell it like the play Les Miserables, but we would call Les Miserables. And we go out in the woods up to a month at a time, living off the land. And we decided at one point that we were going to canoe down the Missouri River and camp at the same places that the Corps of Discovery camped at.
Mm.
Ah,
And I included a little bit of that in the Wigara book, and I think that Marina was excited about that as well. But
Yeah.
also, when she mentioned Lewis and Clark, of course, I couldn't turn down the invitation to be a part of the exhibit.
well, that's quite sort of an interesting sort of timing that all sort of came about. That seems very meant to be, and we're so glad that you got on board, bringing an old, what I would say an old story back into view, but with an indigenous-led narrative. It's time for a lot more collaborations like this exhibit. And Jen, you and I really enjoyed it. It was
Oh, it
really
was
wonderful.
beautiful, but also incredibly informative. All the different multimedia interactive things was really great. Even the smells, I loved that you had
Oh, being able to smell the plants,
a
yeah,
smell option for
yeah.
the things. It was just, yeah, just beautiful. I loved it. I would like to go back again, actually.
Yeah, absolutely. And take some more people. Dr. Salmon, if you would talk about one of the central themes of the exhibit, the idea of plants as portals. The exhibit offers a culturally layered view of specific North American plants once collected during the famous expedition led by Lewis and Clark. More importantly, it beautifully centers the voices and perspectives of Native nations and explores how plants are portals, portals to lineage, stories, and traditional ecological knowledge. From your perspective, how are plants portals and what are we accessing when we experience them and form a relationship with them?
Well, this is a multi-layered concept, and at one layer, we all e- experience this phenomenon, at different times and in different ways, this idea of plants as a portal. And this layer is connected to our memories. And so all of us have some kind of memories related to plants, most likely. Think about, for example, say you attended a wedding where nearby there was this huge oak tree, one of those outdoor weddings. And, or better yet, maybe you experienced something underneath or nearby a huge oak tree. From that point on, whenever you come across oak trees, you read about it, you see a picture of it, the memory of that experience is going to be with you in one way or another. It could be a very profound experience. It could be just sort of a passing experience, but no matter what, that memory is always going to be there. And that's one layer of this notion of a plant as a portal, because it's connected directly to the mental spaces that our minds conjure up
Hmm,
in those moments when we remember those things.
right.
Think about when you might smell cranberry sauce
Hmm,
and all the memories that come back to you, connected to Thanksgiving,
Hmm.
whether they're good or bad,
Right,
but those,
right,
those
right. Yeah.
Thanksgiving memories.
Hmm.
For me, again, at the same layer of Planet Portal, whenever I make a big pot of beans, of pinto beans, or I'm at home and I'm rolling out some, tortillas to be, cooked. All those smells and even the tactile, the touching of it brings back all these incredible memories going way back to my childhood of my
Hmm.
mother and my aunts and my grandmother, cooking and laughing and that sort of thing in the kitchen. And so now we're starting to get into deeper layers of what I mean by plants as portal because they can transform us into other dimensions of understanding, of recognition,
hmm,
of our identity, because all of those memories are connected to who we are. And they're
Hmm.
right.
connected to places, they're connected to moments in time.
Hmm,
And
And
emotions, and there's emotions around that too. Like you have feelings about that,
oh
not
yeah.
only just the time, but just the experience of what you felt and how you felt is, yeah.
hmm.
I always have that when I smell a boxwood. I don't know if you know
Bush,
what those are. They're
shrub,
bushes. And outside of our grandmother's house, she had two big boxwoods. And I know some people think they smell terrible. It, I'm instantly in
transported.
in a joyful way when I smell boxwoods and I stick my face in it and I yeah and so I know exactly what you're talking about and it just takes me right back to a happy, but it doesn't have to be happy like you said, but yes,
Hmm.
smells especially I think do that,
Hmm.
Oh
but
yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
Very powerful.
yeah,
Well, this now we're talking about individual experiences. Now imagine this at a cultural level,
yes, exactly, that's very powerful, right.
and that's what's happening in the exhibit, where this plant knowledge now that people are being introduced to in these seven specific plants in this exhibit are examples of deep cultural understandings and shared memories, shared understanding, shared
Right,
worldview,
yeah.
Hmm,
shared experiences, shared identity
hmm,
related to these plants. So, for example, one of the plants in the exhibit is a Western red cedar. And so to us, those of us who aren't from one of the tribal communities in the Pacific Northwest, Washington, Oregon, and so on, who don't have this constant contact with Western red cedar, we know what the plant is. We can look at pictures of it, maybe see it in an exhibit or something. But what if one is from the community that has been in that relationship on that landscape with those trees for
Hmm.
millennia?
Right.
Right.
And these memories, these shared cultural understandings of Raven tricking a bunch of young women near a stream into believing that he was a scary owl. And they ran up this hill to get away from this scary owl. But as they ran up this steep hill, they transformed into these beautiful tall trees, Ruston red cedar.
Mm.
Wow.
Or remembering this story of the tall grandmother cedar tree and the young sapling that for decades she protected as the sapling grew and grew, and as the sapling got taller, the grandmother tree started to shrivel away as well, but also recognizing that that's the nature of cycles of existence. There's
Hmm.
always going to be birth, life, and death, and that cycle continues. And so those kinds of shared cultural narratives and relationships with the plants are another layer, deeper layer of
Yeah.
this notion of plants as portal.
Mm.
And those of us who are outsiders, we can still enter into this notion of the portal, of seeing into this other reality, not as deeply as the people who are on the other side living it on a daily basis, but we can still experience it to a degree and understand it at least.
Right.
That's the beauty of this idea and what we're
Hmm.
trying to do in the exhibit.
Yes, it's deeply rooted, literally rooted in culture, also in that physical experience. It's in our memory. It's closely related to it's multi-layered sensory experience that goes out into this deeply rooted experience in culture and as well. And it's a really powerful and beautiful idea. And it's one of the highlights of the exhibit. It was really beautifully represented. Um, so one of my favorite moments while walking through the exhibit was when Jen and I came across the word kincentricity in the text at one of the exhibit bays. It stopped me in my tracks because I had not encountered that word before, but it resonated deeply without even knowing precisely what it meant. Talk to us about kincentricity, what it means, and the role it plays in the exhibit.
Well, like other um, traditionally minded indigenous peoples, I'm a storyteller. That's how we share information through narrative. And so, I have to tell you the story of where that came from. For the longest time, as a native scholar and academic, I struggled with trying to write down in English how native peoples experience our relationship to everything around us.
Mm,
And I tried different ways, borrowed from other writers and so on. But then finally, um, another friend of mine, native friend of mine, he's Pima, Dennis Martinez. He and I were talking, this is years and years ago,
mm,
and sharing this, the struggle that we both were having of trying to express indigenous knowledge to non-native peoples. And we talked about how, well, we believe that everything around us as native peoples, we believe that everything around us is a relative. We're directly related to it, just like our human aunts and uncles and cousins and so on. These trees, the animals, even the doorknob on the door behind me. It's part of who I am. It's a direct relative because we share breath with all of that. We
Mm.
share energy. We
mm.
share spirit. If
Right.
you're into Star Wars, it's the Force. It's a
Yeah. Right. Yeah.
similar idea.
Yeah.
Right.
So, and so, we thought about how this notion of relatives borrowing from anthropology, kinship studies, they're kin, they're kindred. They're directly part of our larger, community, our family. And so later on, I published back in the 2000 in the Journal of was it Journal of Ecological Studies, or anyway, one of those ecological journals.
Right.
I wrote this article about, kincentricity and explaining how for Native peoples that we believe that we share spirit with everything around us, and that everything around us is a relative. And so it was there that I introduced this notion of concentric thinking, kincentricity, but I expanded it into this recognition that everything is related to us influences the choices we make on the landscape.
For
It, it,
sure. Yeah.
it influences how we interact with the plants. It influences our land management practices, influences the way, for example, the Hopi up in northern Arizona will plant their corn in bunches, not as single plants, but they'll basically plant about 5 or 6 seeds in the ground, about 12 to 18 inches deep, because that's where the moisture is in an arid environment. It only gets about 7 inches of rain a year. But as the plants emerge and come up above the ground, they create these bushes. So instead of single corn stalks, you get these bushes of corn, and they
Mm,
support each other. And
right.
they create also shade for each other on the hot land.
Mm,
And they support each other, against the windy environment as well that happens during the
Hmm.
growing season.
right.
And so that kind of understanding of the land, of the plants, is a, effect of this concentric way of thinking, this concentric ecological understanding of the land and plants and everything around them.
Wow. Yeah. It's it's like if we share everything with each other and we aren't different, if you're raised with this idea, it instills a deep sense of respect and empathy and how, and it results in how we treat each other then, how you're, so you're saying how you move through the land, how you pick a flower, how you speak or treat an animal, all of that. There's no separation. And if you're breathing the same air and you're experiencing all these things, you're you're putting plants in your body. They're what give you breath and life. If you're breathing in a tree, then you aren't you part of the tree then? Is that sort of the idea?
We're the rain is us.
Mm,
Hmm.
We are those trees. Those trees are us. I'm looking out my window over here
Hmm.
where
yeah.
I have a lot big garden over here where I grow a lot of my vegetables and so on. Um, and it invites another element to this conversation that here I'm borrowing from one of my mentors, Vine Deloria Jr., who in an interview was talking about the difference between Western and Indigenous worldview. And he was talking about how for Western people, Europeans and Americans, there's this notion of a right to everything. We have a right to do what we want, this individual kind of approach to things. For Native peoples, our worldview is focused on responsibility,
Hmm.
where we are responsible for our actions and especially for the results of our actions. It's a responsibility-based worldview,
Mm,
Yeah.
cultures as well. And so that invites, for going back to the earlier example, native agriculturalist
mm,
being responsible not just for making sure that these, the corn and beans and squashes and other things that might be planted that year come up and so that we can have something to eat, but also responsible for making sure that we can continue this practice on this particular landscape so that our our relatives decades from now can still plant the blue corn in the Hopi reservation or the
right.
multicolored corn that my people grow down in Chihuahua, or
Right.
any number of examples we can come up with.
Right.
Right. And if we're all on the same level, if we're kin, everyone has quote unquote rights. everyone has a place with that should be respected. And I think a lot of Western perspective is very reductionist. And even the exhibit starts, Jen, remember when we walked in, there was a microscope right at the beginning.
Yeah.
And you're looking at a microscope. And I thought that was beautifully placed at the beginning because by the end, you're so far from this reductionist perspective of a plant. And now you are in this layered, steeped in culture and meaning and kincentricity. It's the concentric ecology, right? It's like it's now started from this cold, hard perspective to this opening, this blossoming of this experience of these certain plants. And um, it's such a beautiful idea. And it's partly why we named the podcast Kindred, because we're trying to reconnect our way, how we were raised to like see how we are equals and we are all the same, from the teeniest little ant to the largest, blue whale swimming through the ocean and everyone in between. And it was such a beautiful uh, part of the exhibit that I will be steeping in, I think, for the rest of my life. Jen, it was just like so, whew, really hit
Yeah,
the heart immediately. It felt like
definitely.
truth immediately.
Yeah.
It felt like truth immediately. This is the way. And so this is a word that from your culture, from your experience, from everything that was sort of you curated all that into this world. You were saying you're having into this word, you're having that conversation with a friend, but this isn't something new. This is something you've just finally sort of pulled this word. So Jen and I, when we're walking
So
through
you
the
don't have to
exhibit, we can
say
see it.
3 paragraphs. You can just,
Or
right.
teach
Yeah.
400 courses on it. You can say,
Right.
here's this word.
Yeah.
Yeah, the word itself, concentricity, is something that we made up.
Yeah.
Right.
But
Okay.
And I wrote it, I published it, but in my language, if there was a word close to the idea, it would be the title of my previous book, Iwigara,
Mm-hmm.
which roughly translates into, you know, cycles of breath, of shared breath that
mm,
continue and overlap over time.
Mm.
People have this idea that native notion of time is cyclical, it's kind of a big circle. Well, it's actually overlapping circles.
mm.
They're
Right.
constantly, because something that happened in the past can still influence
It
us today.
layers over that. Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
amazing. Well, we were really excited to hear about this expedition. We are so grateful to have been a teeny part of the outside experience of it, and one that I hope leads the way for many more like it. It's important to see history such as the Lewis and Clark expedition re-examined through an Indigenous lens. It challenges some false narratives and allows us to learn about the expedition from a multi-layered perspective, which is just so critical. Um,
And time, I think the timing is it's the time, it's time. I feel like,
mhm.
the timing is like, it's a good time to be
Yeah,
starting to do this. I feel like
yeah,
people are more receptive just in how life has moved. And
mm,
there's a lot more, I feel like, of this coming to the forefront. So it's a very welcome
yes,
perspective for sure.
yes, very, very welcome. And Dr. Salmon, thanks so much for joining us today and walking us through this really important exhibit and offering your perspective on just a few of the subjects Botany of Nations is covering. We barely scratched the surface
Yeah.
here. We hope you will return to Kindred in the future, perhaps. For just a more, in-depth conversation. Like we said, this is just a teeny sort of bit. We just wanted to talk to you about your perspective as a co-curator. We very much appreciate your time today.
Yeah. Thank you so much.
Matetaraba.
And of course, to our listeners, please visit Botany of Nations at the Academy of Natural Sciences at Drexel University in Philadelphia. The exhibit is open now until February 14th, 2027. So we all have time to go and go again. And all the information will be in our show notes. Lastly, you can find all you need to know at the Academy's website at ansp.org. So we hope to see you there. And again, Dr. Salmon, thank you so much. It was such a pleasure to speak with you and just get a teeny, just one little petal of insight into your world. So thanks so much. Kindred is hosted by me and my sister Jenn, produced by Kat Gaddy and myself, sound production and editing by Dan Cooper, original music by Ellie Grace, and our Kindred artwork was created by Lindsay Coffin. Please follow, rate, and review wherever you listen to podcasts, and feel free to contact us through our website at kindredpodcast.co, where you can also find details about Kindred Plus, our subscription service, as well as links to our social media accounts and show notes.